Morning, guys. Eric in the alley again. This is day two back on the Pontiac Vibe. I'm going to show you how to get the cam and crank correlation. That's what we're going to get next, but how I find which wires to back probe. And one good thing about doing this is I like doing it kind of day by day instead of doing the whole, the whole timing chain and then uploading a, 2 hour video. This is like the interaction that we're getting already. Like we got two comments. One, Marsnet said that he has a matrix with 227,000 miles, no issues with the time. So that's a good sign for these engines. We know they're good engines, but it's good to hear, like, if this is your car and you're watching it, I mean, and you hear encouragement, and there's a bunch of mechanics also watching what's going on. So nobody's in a big hurry, which is a good thing. Because whenever you do jobs like this, if you rush them and you just try to get them out the door, you're looking up crap on Google, you're taking guesses at things, and you don't have another guy's opinion all the time. When you're working in a garage, somebody else could like look over your shoulder. That's kind of what we're doing in, information age here. But and Mopar, he actually said he used 12-ton press and he popped out quite a few of these wheel bearings. That's a great sign of encouragement. So that gives me a little bit of, positive outlook on them. I know I had one on a Toyota Sienna. I took to my buddy Dan's machine shop. We couldn't get it out with a 20-ton press. I mean, it would not budge. The only thing we could do is heat it up. We threw it in a bucket of water and the damn thing slid right out. I mean, it just wouldn't move. But that was a Sienna, so hopefully, these matrix are a little bit smaller. But I'm going to show you how I get the signals, which wires to use, and where we're going to get them at. So that's I just, you get comfortable. I got my speaker up there. I found this chair out in the alley because it's all about, you want to find the right schematics. You don't want to find, wrong diagrams. Take your time, get the right ones. This Toyotas, they go off the 8th digit of the VIN. And in this case, let me make sure what it was, is an 8. Oh, you can't really see that. But the option is an L or an 8 for the 8th digit. And this is an 8. So you want to make sure you get the right schematics just in case something's a little bit different. Okay, guys, this is where it's important to have the right VIN number because there's a VIN 8 and a VIN L. We want the 8, and the first 3 are for the all-wheel drive. The last 3 are for the front-wheel drive. That's what we want. I already downloaded these because that way, in case you get knocked offline, you don't have to keep coming back to get the diagram. But if you do use Ivan's site, either pay him for the ad-free or, use a VPN or something. But, I've had no problems with him, but I do pay for the ad-free. It's under $20 a year, so why not? But this is the ECU right here on the first diagram. We could see the ignition coil, the red and blue. These are smart 4-wire coils, so there's going to be a square wave, a signal telling the coil when it wants it to fire. So that's what we're going to sync with there. We have the cam high control and the cam low control. It should be grounding it out, but I believe we want the yellow wire, not the black and yellow. But either way, it's a low voltage signal and you're not going to hurt anything checking it. Then where do we see the crank signal? We have a crank signal out. Goes to starting and charging system. We might be able to get that on top, but we're going to still get it in the glove compartment so we could get all these. It only has one cam sensor on it. Tells you a location. Could back probe it there, but the crank sensor is hard to get to from there, so we're going to just go from the glove box. Now, one thing I want to show you back on when you're on the Mitchell like that. Oh, let me go back. If you go to the wiring system and electrical power management, see if you scroll down, here we go. Anything you don't understand on the schematics, this you have to click, but that'll show you the symbol for whatever the OBD icon. Those are pretty self-explanatory, but partial component. If that's just showing you with a hyphenated line, that's only a partial component. You're not seeing the whole view. If you see anything like that you don't know, entire component, it has a solid line apart. What the fuse symbol is, what the fusible link symbol is. Bolt-on screw or eyelet terminal. I mean, there's a symbol for that. It's kind of describes it, but just what a splice looks like. Single filament light bulbs. You get the idea, but anything on wiring diagrams that you don't get, check in there. And also, everything you need to know using connect test adapters, probing electrical connectors. Now, some of these are, dealer specific. The back probe, and troubleshooting with a multimeter, troubleshooting with a test lamp, measuring voltage using fuse jumper wires, measuring voltage drop. I mean, there's pretty much, voltage drop in a nutshell, but it's because you're connected to the same wire. You're just looking for a difference between this point and that point. There's lots of things like that, how to measure frequency, testing for continuity. So that's a pretty testing for a short to ground with a multimeter, with a test lamp, fuse powering several loads. I mean, there's a lot of information just in factory service. And every one you go to, this is GM's. If you go to another, I mean, sometimes they include an oscilloscope, like what a crank position sensor waveform should look like, what a cam position should look like. This one, it doesn't, but, some do. It all depends on the manufacturer, even the year or the engine. But now we got a little information like that. I'm going to take off the lower part of the glove box, and then I'll see you under the dash. All right, guys, there we are with I got the glove box out. Got the tablet down here so I could keep my wire colors right in front of me. Now this has a flap on it, them little bungee cords. I just use one of them to hold it up. Keeps it out of the way. And I unplugged this from the ECU. Makes it a little bit easier instead of getting way down there. You could just put your back probes in. We could see we're on the purple and blue one there. We're on the yellow, or the yellow with a black stripe. And then this one's on the black for the crank signal. Now what I'm going to do is use the Hscope one channel at a time to make sure I'm getting the signal I want to see out of all three of these. Okay guys, I found this on rotkey.com. They did not have a Pontiac Vibe, but they did have a Toyota Corolla with the same 8th digit engine code as this 1.8. So I take a look at that first, because you don't know if you're going to be looking for a Hall effect sensor right away. You could get the cam and crank without going into that much theory and operation of what kind of sensor you're even looking for. But if you find your known good first, you know right away it's a VR sensor. We're not looking for a digital square wave. So you have in your head what you're probing, because you will find square waves if you probe. Like the variable valve timing, it's a square wave signal. So you're going to be, if you find a square wave and think, oh, I found a cam sensor, no, that's it's this is what we're looking for. Okay guys, following the schematics, I have underneath, I have the cam and crank signal back probed. I just got a short lead in it. I'm going to use the Hscope, and I got one back probe underneath the hood. Instead of, if you could find an easy, this is the same wire that we would be back probing under the dash. It's a little more difficult to get the pins in under the dash. So this is an easy sync on number one. All right, I'm going to give the tripod the classic reach around and try to show you guys how to set this up real quick, or why, I like it for a fast way to check your signal. The presets are pretty useful. It always takes a second to get used to it again, but I think I just went past it. There would have been Hall effects. Okay, variable reluctance sensor, that's us. So you hold the button down until the top turns green, but every time you get a sample of what the waveform should look like. I really don't care for that too much. So the way to take it off, you have to go to presets again, then a reference show, then hold down again. Then it'll disappear. But that'll give you a basic scale so it knows what sensor or what signal it's looking for. So now I'm going to hook it up one at a time, start it up. You don't have to let it warm up for this. We're just checking the signal. All right, you got your wire. Maybe we could both see it if I don't bump the tripod, that is, but I'm going to start it and get under there and just make sure we're getting a signal on both the channels. Right, we can tell that's the crank signal. Now the crank signal, let me get my light. I want to make sure I remember what color back probe it is. Okay, that's the black back probe. Well, that's the cam signal. The cam signal's on the green back probe. Now I'm going to go out to the front. Just going to make sure I'm getting a signal here. getting anything. It'll be pretty easy. Well, now actually we are looking for a square wave. Digital low frequency. Same thing, get rid of the reference file. There we go. The ground was off. But that's what we're looking there for there. You know, a lot of times keep checking your ground. That ground looks pretty good back there on the strut tire, but just moving it made a world of difference. But now we got all three signals. I'm going to move the card over and I'm going to set up Hscope, the HS512. It does show you guys this. I found this down Goodwill in the bin, so it probably cost like $0.25. And the leads are still on it. The lead zone dot, the backlight still works, and the fuse is still good. And even though I have a couple other meters, I like using, just like the scopes, I like using the different scopes, different one for a different occasion. I mean, this is a capable multimeter. I mean, I will use this just for, you know, to say I used a tool that I found at Goodwill. For nothing more than that. All right, guys, once you get them signals, I just myself, I moved the diagnostic card over. It's my little diagnostic dune buggy. I keep the scope on the corner and I use the longer leads to get back underneath it. So that way everything's all out of the way, you know. Keep your stuff safe, and it's nice being not crammed under the hood or, you know, stuck under the dash with a short lead. So even if you don't start with it, invest in something like 3-meter leads later on, or make your own. You know, it's a lot cheaper making your own leads. But as soon as I turned on Hscope, this is what I have. Now that's both the signals that we've seen with Uscope. You just want to make sure you're not overscaling. Everything looks right. We're going up, you know, 6-volt peak and odd at. So that's a pretty good scale for this, because the ranges I have, 3.3 would be too low and 16 would be too high. So we're right where we need to be. Probably could go lower on channel 2, but there's really no need. This is what we want mainly. Now what I want to do is go to automotive module now. I want to keep everything the same. Then I want to hit start. You know, sometimes you can catch this to get it to go. Not this time. But that's what we want to do, is just let it go. You don't have to let it go too long. You could check it at different RPMs, but basically you want an idling image. I'm going to just stop that, then quickly save it. We're going to just call this Vibe. Cam and crank. Okay, now I'm going to shut the car off. All right, now I got one lead. This would be channel 2. This is going to the number 1 signal for the number 1 coil. And then I still have number 1 on the crank sensor. Now I'm going to start it up and get an image of the number 1 signal with the crank sensor. Okay, on scope mode we could see, it's a little bit hard to see the crank signal behind it, but we could see we have the signal there. So what I'm going to do is go to automotive module again. Keep my settings the same. Kilosamples are 150. The time's 20 milliseconds of division. Gonna hit record. I'm going to just let that go. You don't need much. I'm going to stop it right there. Now we're going to save that. We're going to save that as Vibe, crank, and 1. As long as I generally know what it is, I'm good with pulling it back up. It's the ones I don't name at all. I have to sit there and think, what the hell is this from? So I'll always name them as you go, or it's easy to forget. Yeah, that's a thing I like, guys. Like later on, I'll be able to compare this known good to, you know, Hscope, what we have. And the cam and crank correlation is just 2 channel on this, being there's only 1 cam sensor. But cam timing and ignition timing is not the same thing. On some cars, on this car, I believe, on these type of crank sensors, it's firing off of the cam. But we could check the cam timing and we could check the ignition timing with the crankshaft. Now we could have did this again with ignition signal in the camshaft to check them for any reason. But we just put number 1 in there basically as a sync. But the cam and crank correlation is just a 2 channel what we have. But later on I'll be able to check out, we're going for a chain anyways to get to the bottom of that sound and that actuator sound. So one way or another we're going in that route. I'm going to start draining it. I'll keep you guys along. I'm going to just disassemble it. That I know the order to go in. Reassembling it, we're going to follow the factory specs, factory data. Because taking down the splash shield, a little bit of antifreeze came down whenever I put it on an angle like that. You see a little in there. Let's see where that's coming from underneath. We had the radiator overflow cap off, but we didn't add anything to spill it, and you know, that'd just be residual. Didn't notice anything on the floor overnight either, so it's if it is a slow drip, it's containing it in the pan. So far, guys, I've been pretty impressed with this little Cobalt. It's I'm waiting to fix my other one. I figured it's a subcompact. It's so damn small. I didn't know if it was going to have the torque to take off lugs, but on the advertisement for it, they show a guy taking off lug nuts with it. Have it on the soft stuff. There we go. A lot of torque for, I mean, even getting in with a shallow well, 1/2 inch. And that's a lot, you know, tighter spaces, especially going up whenever you're jacking up cars on the ground using jack stands, a lot of times a big impact, it just won't get under the ball joints unless you jack them sky high. And this will, you know, give me a little bit more flexibility. At least till I fix the big guy. Okay, this looks like they changed the antifreeze and the oil not too long ago, since I got the car, but probably before they decided to go with the chain. But sadly, we can't reuse any of the antifreeze or the oil. I could already see the dirt in it from up here. I'll show you whenever we take it out. But even the way you take it out of a Toyota, they don't leave you a drain. It just runs through the frame and down that hole. So everything it picks up along the way, we don't want none of that in the new water pump, in the new thermostat. The oil for certain, even if it's only a day old oil, when you put a new chain, especially the actuator, it's on this intake cam, it's the most expensive part of the timing components. We're also replacing this VVT solenoid. I don't even change timing chains without changing this, because even the dirt and the grit that's in that little control valve, you don't want that in your oil after you replace an actuator. You want to keep good, clean oil in it and keep it on time every time. Okay, ran two on the intake tube. This Phillips head screw, it's pretty galded on there. I soaked it, but I just said for the purge valve, I just disconnected the electrical connection in both the evap hoses, and what I did is just marked them with a little bit of fingernail polish. That way I do that the whole way along. Then that way, even if you go to work on it again in the future, it's actually, you know, how you think they should have came. And here's just a quick tip, guys, for timing chains. I jack up the back as much as I jack up the front. You have to take the front wheel off to get to the bottom of the crank, but if you have the front and the back level, when you go to line up the timing marks of the timing chain, now you could tell the engine's on a little bit of a tilt to begin with, and if you tilt the engine, you're going to be, you know, your vision and your perspective, you're going to have to keep it in special account. I'm not saying you can't do it that way. I've done a lot that way with just the front end jacked up, but you know, it's a lot better. You're a lot more accurate if it's just like it's sitting on the ground. Next, guys, I'm cleaning the top of the coils just so whenever I mark them, I like putting them back in the same hole it came out of. It's, you know, it's debatable whether that makes a difference. I just like, in case I find something like heat damage later on, I could look at the coil that came out of this cylinder or that cylinder, look at the boot and know that that's what it was. So I'm going to just clean up the top, mark them too. I'm going around everything that I'm going to get to tomorrow to disassemble, like on the suspension, to take out wheel and caliper, all out of our way, because we're going to replace that bearing anyway. So I'm clearing all this out as I go. So, you know, it's kind of looking ahead. The penetrating oil, it's, you know, it's okay, but you do need to leave it sit a little bit for it to be effective. So try to plan ahead and keep hitting it as you go. You guys just looking down there, something down here, looking right. Yes, yes. The hell is it? Oh shit, Stanley. Part of somebody's thermos. Oh well, things you find. Okay, while the tops of the coils are drying, I'm going to disconnect the electrical connectors. Toyotas usually do come apart, but we're going to see high mileage. Sometimes these okay, there's one. There's no distinct click like on a German or some Hondas where you actually hear it release. You'll hear it when you push it on and click, but on some German cars, when you push this down, you'll hear the click and you know you're good enough to pull it. Here we go. 4 for 4. It's all right. That's okay. There's many more. I'm going to leave the plugs in it. Take the coils out after I mark them, but I'm going to leave the plugs in it. That way there's less of a chance of anything falling down in the spark plug hole until the last minute. All right, now so I have the Napa box ready to put the coils in. Then that way I get them on my way and, you know, no chance of anything happening to them. You see, always check the bottom, make sure I'm not leaking. We're going to replace the rocker cover gasket anyway, so any oil leak will be addressed then. That's right, Toyota. See, it was leaking a little bit around there, but we're putting a new gasket on there, and it's not enough to oil foul it. So, but I marked the top just with the dot so we know who goes where. I believe it's this one we have to take off the 10mm bolt holding the coil in. Yes, we do. Might need a deeper well. The harness enough out of the way. All right, put them on the shelf. And for the PCV hose, I've marked one side. I just put a little bit of nail polish on it and on the little nipple where it came off of. It's not that you can't figure out which way it goes on, but whenever you're going to put it back together and you see that and you see that, it's a no-brainer. And also, I mark them, especially the hoses, because you see from here, if you forgot to hook up a hose or when you're looking over the engine doing your, final look over, this red sticks out back there. So it's kind of drawing your eye to that and the white on this hose here. See what I mean? It draws your eye to it, so that way, avoids a comeback and it makes sure the engine's going to be leaving running right. And there's one clip on this wire going down to the power steering pump. We just pop that off of the harness. Now that'll let this whole coil controlling power wires, the connectors, it'll let that all come to the back. If it keeps getting in your way, which I might do, because I hate it whenever I'm working on something and it flies back while you're working, while you're trying to set the rocker cover gasket. So what I'm going to do is there's a engine hook right here. I'm going to just put a zip tie around it just to hold it right there, keep it out of harm's way, and keeps it out of my way. Actually, it would have got my way to get one of the rocker cover bolts out if I would have zip tied it to the engine hook. So that's the same purple bungee cord we used to get the computer door flap out of the way so we could get the cam crank correlation. All right, guys, I got the wire harness pulled back, got the rocker cover ready to come off, got everything soaking. Tomorrow we're going to do a lot of disassembling. That part moves very fast, so we're going to get down to the bare components tomorrow for sure. hopefully at the same time, we're going to be moving along, getting the spindle off of this side. Because this side, then we could do the other wheel bearing after the timing chain and everything's gone. But right now, this is in our way. Well, it's not really in our way. I mean, that's how I usually do them. I don't do anything with the spindle or brakes whenever you do a timing chain, but being we are doing that, you know, use that to your advantage. Get it out of your way now. Get yourself more room under there to put the timing chain on. All right, guys, hope you like seeing videos this way. I mean, it's a little bit more, you know, keeping it going, keeping you in the loop with everything. I got a little bit of late start on it today, but we still got the cam and crank correlation. Ronnie with that PT Cruiser, the exhaust, the back half of it fell off. I jacked it up and got it out from under it. He was dragging it, but now he's running with open pipes in it. So, but anyways, tomorrow, going to get the most of the engine ripped off, the valve cover. We're going to disconnect the VVT, get it out of there. You got to be careful. Sometimes they break off in there, but we're going to make sure it doesn't, or, you know, give it the best shot we can. You're going to take off the alternator, everything like that, work that way, take off the timing chain cover, and like I said, we're going to keep going towards that wheel bearing too. So I'm going to take a look at that when I go in the house, the cam crank correlation and the known good. I'll post that on there, and at least we'll see where we stood with the old chain. Now I left the back probes exactly where they were in the ECU, so whenever we're done, there's no playing around. It's already back probed. You know exactly where it is. All right, guys, thanks a lot. I appreciate you watching. I enjoy the comments, and thank you for the likes. You know, but I don't do this for the likes. I do this for the people that like doing this. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Adios.